People always ask me if I miss the adrenaline. They ask if, after 20 years in the teams, operating in places that don't officially exist on maps, sitting on a porch in Wyoming feels boring. And I usually just smile and sip my coffee because the truth is I don't miss the noise. I don't miss the chaos. I moved out here to Echo Ridge, 50 miles from a near stoplight, specifically because I wanted the only thing fighting for my attention to be the trout in the lake or the wind coming off the Tetons. I wanted peace for my daughter, Maya. She was 16, trying to figure out who she was without moving bases every 2 years. And I was trying to figure out how to be a dad without a deployment schedule hanging over my head. We were doing good, really good, until the Tuesday afternoon that Maya's scream tore through the silence of the valley like a jagged blade. And just like that, the peace I'd spent 3 years building shattered into a million pieces. I was up in the barn, working on the transmission of an old Ford, grease up to my elbows when I heard it, "Dad, help!" And that sound, it bypasses your brain and goes straight to your nervous system. I didn't wipe my hands, I just moved. I jumped into the truck, floored it down the gravel drive toward the lakefront, rocks spraying like buckshot behind me. And as I crested the hill, I saw a scene that made my blood turn to absolute ice. There was a black van parked illegally near our private dock, the kind without plates on the front and tinted windows that screamed trouble, and two men in uniforms were dragging my daughter across the grass. One had her by the arm, twisting it up behind her back in a control hold that was too aggressive for a kid, and Maya was fighting, kicking at their shins, screaming her head off. I skidded the truck sideways, blocking their exit, and I was out of the cab before the dust even settled. Now, in the teams, they teach you to assess a threat in microseconds. ODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. And as I walked toward them, closing the distance with long, heavy strides, my brain was already dissecting them. Two males, mid-30s. The uniforms were tan, badge on the chest, patches on the sleeves. To a civilian, maybe they looked like deputies or park rangers. To me, they looked like absolute garbage. The polyester was cheap and ill-fitting, the kind you buy at a costume shop, not a supply depot. Their boots weren't tactical. They were black hiking sneakers. And their holsters, they were nylon, flimsy, riding too high on their hips. These weren't cops. They were predators playing dress-up. "Let her go," I said, and I didn't yell it. I've learned that the loudest guy in the room is usually the most scared. I said it with the kind of calm that makes smart people very, very nervous. The bigger guy, let's call him Beefy, didn't let go. He actually tightened his grip on Maya, puffed his chest out, and flashed a plastic badge that looked like it came from a cereal box. "Step back, sir," he barked, trying to summon some authority he clearly didn't possess. "This is official business. Community Compliance Division." I stopped about 5 feet from him. Community compliance? We're on private land, 5 miles from the nearest neighbor. There is no community association here. Now, I'm going to say this one more time before things get extremely educational for you. Take your hands off my daughter. The smaller guy, the weasel, looked nervous. He was glancing at my hands, my stance, probably noticing that I wasn't reacting like a scared suburban dad. "Look, Mr. Vance," he said, and hearing my name come out of his mouth sent a spike of rage through me that I had to physically push down. "We have multiple violations on file for Maya Vance. Trespassing in protected wetlands, unauthorized waste disposal, disturbing the peace. We have a detention order to transport her to the Juvenile Assessment Center for processing." He reached into his jacket pocket, and instinct took over. I didn't know if he was reaching for a warrant or a weapon, and I wasn't waiting to find out. I closed the gap in a blur, trapped his wrist, and twisted. He yelped, dropping a manila folder onto the dirt. I kicked his legs out, dropping him to one knee, not to hurt him badly, just to reset the power dynamic. Beefy released Maya instantly, his hand hovering near his belt, but he froze when he saw the look in my eyes. "Don't," I said. "Do not reach for that belt unless you want to eat it." Maya scrambled behind me, breathing hard, clutching her wrist. "Dad, they said they were taking me to a reform school. They had handcuffs." I picked up the folder from the dirt. It was filled with papers that looked official at a glance. Eagle seals, legal jargon, bold fonts. But up close, it was a joke. The official seal was pixelated. The court order was signed by a judge that didn't exist in this county. But then I flipped the page, and the anger I was holding back turned into something colder, something much more dangerous. There were photos. Photos of Maya swimming off our dock. Photos of her walking to the school bus. Photos of me going into town for supplies. They had timestamps. They had notes. Target alone from 1,400 to 1,600 hours. They hadn't just stumbled upon us. They had been hunting us. "You've been watching my little girl," I whispered, and the silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a tank. It's standard procedure for the investigation." The weasel stammered, holding his wrist. "We're just contractors. We got the order from the Pine Lake Oversight Board." "Pine Lake is 3 counties over," I said, "and it's a retirement community. Get in the van." They hesitated. Beefy tried to find his courage again. "Sir, if you interfere with a federal transport." "I'm not interfering." I cut him off, stepping into his personal space until I could smell the stale coffee on his breath. "I'm giving you a head start. You're going to get in that van, you're going to drive away, and you're going to pray I don't catch you before you hit the county line. Because if I see you again, if I even smell you near this property, the sheriff won't be the one finding you. Do you understand?" I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of them, then the van, then the license plate, Nevada plates, rental stickers scraped off but still visible. They scrambled into the vehicle like cockroaches when the lights turn on, tires spinning in the gravel as they peeled out. I watched them go, memorizing the plate number, analyzing the threat. They were sloppy, unprofessional, and weak. But they knew our schedule. They knew my name. And they had been willing to put hands on my child. Maya was shaking now, the adrenaline dump hitting her hard. I turned and pulled her into a hug, tucking her head under my chin like I used to when she was 5 during thunderstorms. "I've got you," I told her. "I'm sorry. I should have seen them." "They knew you were in the barn, Dad," she whispered. "They waited until you went inside." We went into the house, and I locked it down. Deadbolts, perimeter alarms, the works. I sat Maya down at the kitchen table with a mug of hot chocolate, her comfort drink, and spread the fake documents out. I needed to think. Why us? Why here? We kept to ourselves. We didn't flash money. And then I saw it, buried in the fine print of their fake citation. A reference to a specific military pension code. A code that only applies to Tier 1 operators and high-level intelligence officers. They weren't targeting us because we were rich. They were targeting us because of who I used to be. They knew I was military. They knew I had a clearance. And they knew that guys like me, guys with security clearances and pensions to protect, we tend to pay up quietly when someone threatens to involve the police or arrest our kids. It was an extortion racket tailored specifically for veterans. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I opened a text. A picture of Maya from 2 days ago, walking into the general store. The caption read, "This isn't over, Vance. Next time we bring the real authorities. Cooperate and she stays safe." I stared at that screen, and I didn't feel fear. I felt clarity. They had made a fatal calculation error. They thought they were bullying a retired soldier who just wanted to be left alone. They didn't realize they had just declared war on a SEAL platoon. "Maya," I said, looking up, "I need to make a few calls. You okay to hang tight for a minute?" She nodded, tough kid, wiping her eyes. "Are you calling Uncle Silas?" "No," I said, dialing a number I hadn't used in 6 months. "I'm calling the whole team. The thing about the Brotherhood is that it doesn't expire when you hand in your ID card." I called Jack Hammer O'Connor, who ran a security firm in Billings. I called Doc Miller, who was now an ER surgeon but could still shoot the wings off a fly at 1,000 yards. And I called Reed, my old intel specialist who lived off-grid about an hour south. I didn't have to explain much. I just said, "Someone tried to snatch Maya. They're running a fake badge scam on vets." They were at my ranch within 90 minutes. When Reed walked in, he didn't even say hello. He just slapped a laptop onto the coffee table and started typing. Jack was checking the sightlines from the windows, and Doc was checking on Maya. It felt like old times, the rhythm of a unit falling back in a sync, except the stakes were infinitely higher because the target package was my home. "I ran the plate," Reed said, not looking up. "Rental car, out of Vegas. Rented under a shell company called Apex Community Solutions. The website is impressive. Looks like a legitimate HOA management firm, but the domain was registered 3 weeks ago in the Caymans. Total front. Who's running it? I asked. The face of the company is a woman named Julianne Thorne, Reed said, pulling up a mugshot. She's a grifter. Fraud, embezzlement, impersonating an officer in Florida 2 years ago. She slides into rural areas, targets isolated properties, claims HOA jurisdiction where there is none, and bleeds people dry with fines. If they don't pay, she escalates to detaining family members to force a settlement. She's essentially kidnapping kids and holding them for ransom under the guise of legal fines. She picked the wrong zip code, Jack growled, cracking his knuckles. It gets worse, Reed continued. I hacked their cloud server. They have files on 50 families in this tri-state area. All military, all retired or active duty with high clearances. They're specifically targeting us because they know we don't want legal trouble that could flag our records. They've squeezed about $500,000 out of veterans in the last 6 months. I looked at the photos on Reed's screen. Families I knew, men I'd served with, good people who were terrified of losing their pensions or their reputations, paying these parasites to leave their kids alone. They're escalating, I said. They failed today. They know I made them. Julianne isn't going to cut and run. She's going to try to crush me to send a message to the other victims. If the seal goes down, nobody else will dare to fight back. Maya walked into the living room then. She looked at the team, at the maps on the table, at the weapons leaning against the wall. She didn't look scared anymore. She looked angry. They're coming back, aren't they? Yeah, honey, they are, I said honestly. Good, she said, her voice steady. Because I want to help. Absolutely not. I started, but she cut me off. Dad, they know what you look like. They know the truck. If they see you, they'll run. But they think I'm just a scared teenager. They think I'm the weak link. She looked me dead in the eye. Let me be the bait. The silence in the room was heavy. Every instinct in me screamed no. You protect the principal. You don't expose them. But she was right. They were watching the house. If they saw Jack and Reed, they'd vanish. We needed to draw them in close enough to trap them, and the only thing they wanted was Maya. We wire you up, I said, my voice tight. Vest under the hoodie, GPS tracker, panic button, and we are never more than 20 feet away. The absolute second, you feel wrong, you drop to the ground, and we end it. She nodded. Deal. We set the trap for the next afternoon. We knew they were watching. Reed had intercepted a text from their burner phones confirming they were bringing the heavy squad to secure the asset. They weren't playing cop anymore. They were coming to take her by force. I positioned Jack in the boathouse, submerged in the water under the dock with a rebreather. Overkill, maybe, but I wasn't taking chances. Doc was in the tree line with a long gun. Reed was in the van monitoring comms. I was in the tall grass near the shoreline, ghillie suit on, invisible. Maya sat on the end of the dock, dangling her feet in the water, reading a book. She looked so small out there, so vulnerable. My heart was hammering against my ribs harder than it ever had in Afghanistan. At 1,400 hours, a black SUV rolled up the access road. Not the van this time. Something bigger. 4 men got out. They were wearing tactical vests now, carrying what looked like pepper spray rifles and batons. And walking behind them, looking like she owned the place, was a woman in a sharp blazer and sunglasses. Julianne Thorne. She didn't just send the goons. She came to oversee the payout. She was confident. Too confident. Target acquired, Doc whispered in my earpiece. 5 hostiles. 1 principal. Weapons visible. Hold, I whispered. Let them commit. Julianne walked onto the grass, staying back while her 4 thugs fanned out. They approached the dock. Maya didn't look up until they were 10 feet away. Maya Vance, Julianne called out, her voice smooth, professional. I'm Director Thorne. Your father has refused to comply with our community standards, and, unfortunately, that means you're coming with us until the fines are adjudicated. Maya stood up, clutching her book. My dad isn't home. You can't be here. That's actually better for everyone. Julianne smiled, a shark-like grin. Grab her. 2 of the thugs stepped onto the wood of the dock. 1 reached for Maya. Now, Maya dropped flat to the deck, covering her head. Jack erupted from the water directly under the dock. hauling himself up over the railing like a swamp monster, dripping wet and holding a suppressed carbine. The two thugs on the dock froze, their brains unable to process the sudden appearance of a fully armed frogman. Jack swept the legs of the first guy and tossed the second one into the lake with a splash that sounded like justice. At the same time, Doc fired a single warning shot from the tree line that took the side mirror off the SUV, shattering glass everywhere. Next one takes an ear. Doc boomed over the localized PA system we'd rigged. I rose from the grass, 10 feet from Julianne. She spun around, her sunglasses falling off, revealing eyes wide with terror. Nobody moves? I roared, my weapon trained on her remaining two guards. Drop the batons. Face in the dirt. Now, it wasn't a fight. It was a domination. The hired muscle saw the laser dots on their chests, saw the seals closing in, and they made the only smart decision of their lives. They surrendered immediately. Within 30 seconds, 4 men were zip-tied on the lawn, and Julianne Thorne was standing alone, surrounded by men who looked like they ate concrete for breakfast. I walked up to her, looming over her. You promised to bring the real authorities, Julianne. Well, here we are. We are the authority. She was shaking, trying to maintain her composure. You can't do this. I have lawyers. I have connections. This is kidnapping. No, I said, leaning in close. This is a citizen's arrest for attempted kidnapping, extortion, and fraud. And since we're on federal land bordering a national forest, I've invited a friend. I nodded to the driveway as a convoy of sheriff's deputies and 2 unmarked black sedans rolled in. I'd sent the file Reed compiled to the FBI field office that morning. They were very interested in why a fake HOA was targeting security clearance holders. The feds took over the scene, bagging evidence, loading the thugs into vans. But as they were cuffing Julianne, she looked at me with this sneering, hateful look. You think you won? She spat. You think I'm a top of the food chain? I'm just a franchisee, Vance. You have no idea who you're messing with. The man who designed this system, he's going to burn your world down. I signaled for the agent to wait a second. Who? I asked. Who's running you? Major Silas Reed, she whispered, enjoying the look of shock that must have crossed my face. Ring a bell? It did. Silas Reed, ex-Army intelligence, dishonorably discharged for selling logistics data. A guy who knew exactly how military families ticked, how to exploit their fears, how to weaponize their honor against them. He wasn't just a crook, he was a traitor to the uniform. Where is he? I asked, my voice low. He's at the luxury lodge up in Big Sky, she smirked. Watching this on a live feed from my body cam. He's probably packing his bags right now. I looked at the camera, clipped to her lapel, looked right into the lens. Run, Silas, I said to the camera. Run as fast as you can. It won't matter. I turned to the FBI agent in charge, a guy named Miller who I'd worked with in Yemen. You get her. I want Reed. Miller looked at me, then at the team. I can't authorize a tactical team to hit a hotel based on hearsay, Caleb. I need a warrant. It'll take hours. I'm not asking for authorization, I said, walking toward my truck where Jack and Reed were already loading up. I'm giving you a courtesy heads up. We drove to Big Sky. It was an hour drive, but we made it in 40 minutes. Silas Reed was exactly where Julianne said he was, in the penthouse suite of the ski lodge, but he wasn't packing. He was shredding. We didn't kick the door down. We weren't vigilantes. We just blocked the exits. I stood in the hallway as he tried to leave with a briefcase full of hard drives. He stopped when he saw me. He was older than I remembered, softer, wearing a $3,000 suit. Vance, he said, forcing a smile. Long time. I assume you're here to negotiate a settlement. I'm here to ask you one question, I said, stepping forward. How could you? You wore the uniform. You know what these families go through. You know the stress, the sacrifice, and you built a business model on terrorizing them. I built a business model on stupidity. Reed sneered, his arrogance surfacing. You sheep follow rules. You're terrified of a black mark on your record. I just monetize your obedience. It's not personal, Caleb. It's economics. That was it. That was the disconnect. To him, honor was just a leverage point. It's personal to me, I said. I didn't hit him. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I let the local PD, who had arrived behind us, slapped the cuffs on him. Watching him get dragged out of that hotel, kicking and screaming about jurisdiction, stripped of his dignity in front of the tourists in the lobby, that was better than a punch. The fallout was massive. The FBI raid on Reed's servers revealed a network spanning 12 states. They had targeted over 200 military families. They had fake HOA boards, fake debt collectors, even fake judges on payroll. It was an industrial-scale betrayal of veterans. 2 weeks later, we held a town hall meeting at the high school gym. It was packed. Not just my neighbors, but families from 3 counties over. People who had been scammed, people who had been terrified to speak up. I stood on the stage, not as a SEAL, but just as a dad. Maya was sitting in the front row, holding her head high. They targeted us because they thought we would stay silent, I told the crowd. They thought that because we were used to following orders, we wouldn't question false authority. They used our integrity against us. But they forgot one thing. We don't fight for ourselves. We fight for the person standing next to us. The applause was deafening. But the best part wasn't the speech. It was afterward. A woman came up to me, holding the hand of a little boy about 7 years old. She was crying. They tried to take my son last month, she told me. Said he broke a window at the community center. I paid them $5,000 because my husband is deployed and I was scared. Thank you. Thank you for giving us our fight back. We set up a real community watch after that. No fake badges, no fines. Just neighbors watching out for neighbors. We created a verification network for any official trying to enforce laws on private property. If an HOA inspector shows up now, they're met by 5 guys who know how to field strip a rifle blindfolded, politely asking to see credentials. Julianne Thorne took a plea deal and got 15 years. Silas Reed is looking at 25 for racketeering and wire fraud. He tried to claim he was a victim of the system, but the judge, a Marine vet, didn't buy it. As for Maya, she's different now. Toughened up. She asked me to teach her self-defense, not the gym class stuff, but the real stuff. We spend our mornings running drills in the barn. She's not afraid anymore. She knows that bad people exist, but she also knows that good people, dangerous, capable good people, are standing guard. Sometimes I sit on the porch, looking at the sunset over the lake, and I think about what Reed said. That we're sheep. He was wrong. We're sheepdogs. And when the wolves come knocking, trying to hurt the flock, they better be ready for the teeth. So here's my question to you guys. We handled this our way, security through community, protecting our own. But in a world where scammers can print a badge and look official, where they can buy your data and know your kids' names, how do you know who to trust? When a guy in a uniform knocks on your door and demands your children, do you comply? Or do you stand your ground? Let me know in the comments. Because out here at Echo Ridge, we made our choice. And we're still standing.